Moving pictures has existed since 1895, and from the beginning, horror was part of it. This clip I'm showing now is from 1903. The first version of Frankenstein was from 1910, so really early on we had horror. I'm going to talk about horror through the ages, and we're going to start with the 1920s, and I'm going to discuss a cool horror film worth watching from each of these decades to kind of see the way it moved and progressed. Now, I'm going to assume most of you guys are probably already horror fans, so I'm not going to name the big mainstream horrors in these decades, but more obscure ones you may not have heard of. And so this gives you something to look up and enjoy. From the 1920s, we're going to bring a silent movie. Obviously, that's all we get in the 1920s. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, starring John Barrymore. This is actually one of my favorite Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hydes. The scene I'm showing here is Dr. Jekyll's nightmare, in which Hyde, in the form of a tarantula with Hyde's head, crawls up onto his bed to merge with him. The Hyde is particularly nasty. In fight scenes, he tries to bite people. He's really degenerate and evil. This is before the Hays Code, which lets him be even more evil. But I say check it out. Watch this Jekyll and Hyde. What a Hyde that John Barrymore makes. And it's amazing because he's such a handsome guy when he's the hero. And the Hyde isn't that much makeup, but really is nasty. For the 1930s, we have a major actor of the time, Bela Lugosi, in the film White Zombie. He plays Murder Legendre, a zombie master. This is actually my favorite Bela Lugosi role, even better than his role in Dracula, and has a kind of twisted, demented story. A playboy essentially decides he wants his best friend's new wife. So he goes to Murder Legendre to have him turn her into a zombie. So she'll be buried, but she'll come back to life and he'll get her. It's never quite clear if the zombies in this are actually dead or just brain controlled. These are before the modern zombies that eat brains and run around in flesh. So these zombies just want to work in the sugar mills mostly, but they will also do the dirty work for Murder Legendre, and they're pretty menacing in that. Although it's called White Zombie, presumably referring to the young wife of the title, there's other zombies in it that are white. So there you go. Turns out also that being a friend of Murder Legendre is dangerous, like I said, even as a friend. So he's really nasty and great. There's this awesome scene where he's voodooing a guy by carving a little figure of him to turn him into a zombie. And he says, "I wish you could talk so I could know what you're feeling right now." And he's like so villainous. Anyway, great role for Bela Lugosi, scary film. 1940s, a movie by Val Lewton. If you haven't heard of Val Lewton, go look him up. There's about 7 movies that he produced, actually didn't direct, but produced, but put his stamp on each one. And they're all fabulous, fabulous films. But this one, The Body Snatchers, I particularly care for because it is both Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi are in it, and they're not even the body snatchers of the title. Boris Karloff does some body snatchy. This is one of the earlier versions of the Burke and Hare story, where you have Burke and Hare getting bodies for dissection for the Mad Doctor, and instead of going out and digging up bodies, which is hard and dangerous, they just are murdering people. It was remade a whole bunch of times in different ways. This version by Val Lewton is probably the best of all of them, though I like them all. I'd say check it out, obviously. 1950s. We have a movie from France, and I'm probably butchering the name, You Asan's Visage, which is about a mad doctor whose daughter has a badly scarred face, so she wears this ivory mask, which is kind of creepy too, as she moves around the house in the mask. And his goal is to find a face to transplant onto her. But of course, you have to get it from a live person, because how else would it happen, right? So it's the Mad Doctor trying to beautify his wife. This has been remade a whole bunch of times in different versions, in different ways. I think my favorite other version of this is The Brain That Wouldn't Die, in which the guy keeps his girlfriend's head alive in a pan until he can get a body to attach to it. So he's looking for like the hottest body. And the girlfriend isn't totally up with this. That's also pretty good. It's not as well filmed and beautifully acted as You Asan's Visage, nor does it have as nasty surgery scenes, but it's pretty great. So I'd recommend that one as well. Moving to the 1960s, we get our first color movie of the lot. And this is Black Sabbath by my favorite horror director, Mario Bava. Black Sabbath is cool for a lot of reasons, but one of them is it's an anthology movie. So there's 3 separate stories in it. The first story is okay. It's it would be good if it wasn't for the greatness of the other 2 stories. I mean, I guess it's good anyway, but not as good. The second story is A Drop of Water, in which a ghost manifests itself as dripping water, and Bava makes dripping water scary, and the whole thing is creepy in the death house of this dead medium and the spirits, and it just keeps getting creepier and creepier. I really like it a lot. The third story is Boris Karloff is in it, and it's about vampires. In this, Boris Karloff tells the family he's going to go off and kill this Turkish bandit who is supposed to be a vampire. And he says, if I come back before midnight, then all is well. If I come back after midnight, don't let me in. I'm a vampire. And he comes back right exactly at midnight. So that's kind of an issue. The vampires in this are really creepy and nasty. They, like, for example, one of them's outside in the snow saying, "Mommy, Mommy, let me in, I'm cold." And what are you going to do? It's your kid, and he's outside in the cold, even he might be a vampire. It's just like, that is my pick for the 60s. And it's a strong entry in the Mario Bava milieu of films, which if you haven't seen he's worth watching. For the 1970s, we're going to stay in Italy, and this movie is Tenebrae by Dario Argento, more famous for Deep Red and Suspiria, but Tenebrae I really like. It's got a ending that won't quit. It's from the moment the axe comes through the window for the next 30 minutes, there's twist after twist and gore. It's got this amazing shot that lasts 2.5 minutes where the camera crawls over this house and peers into the windows and sees what's going on, and then the murder happens. It is a excellent movie. Nothing supernatural in it, despite the kind of supernatural-ish sounding title. But great acting, great murders, and like all giallos, a appalling twist that is terrifying. 1980s, we're still in Italy for 60s, 70s, and 80s. I guess they kind of ruled horror during that time, in my opinion. In the 80s, we're going to go for the famous Lucio Fulci, and this is City of the Walking Dead. Now, this actually is supposed to take place mostly in the city of Dunwich, which is the Lovecraft location, though it looks a little more upscale than the Dunwich of the story. In this, there is a case where the dead are coming back to life, and they are not zombies, despite Lucio Fulci's prominence in the zombie genre. They are ghosts, and they teleport, and their signature death move is to grab you by the back of the head and crush out your brains. They're bad. They're quite rotten and old, covered with maggots, and the whole thing has scene after scene, which of stomach-churning horror. So maybe not for little kids. I would say NC-17, but City of the Walking Dead is a really fabulous film, and it carries on Lucio Fulci's tradition of once the horror starts, once we're in the bad place, it's more or less dream logic. There's a scene that one of my friends attacked in it where this woman wakes up in a coffin, and she has to get broken out of, and it's like, well, she couldn't do that because she'd have been embalmed. Well, Lucio Fulci actually worked in a mortuary, so he knows bodies get embalmed. He chose to have this woman coming back to life in the coffin for reasons, and one of the reasons might be that the dead are coming back to life because of this happenstance, and maybe she's one of them. It's never clear. He doesn't explain it. That's one of the things I love about Lucio Fulci, is he doesn't explain what he's doing. He just does it, and so you're left to figure out your own explanations. And I actually really respect that in a movie when it's done well. It's one thing to have confusion for the sake of confusion, but Fulci's not doing that. He's actually has a purpose behind it. He just lets you figure it out. So anyway, I like him. 1990s. The movie Necronomicon with a heavily made up Jeffrey Combs playing H.P. Lovecraft, where he goes into this evil library to read the Necronomicon. And this is another anthology movie with 3 little anthological segments that are all kind of sort of based on Lovecraft stories. Like one of them is a little bit based on The Whisperer in Darkness and so forth. So It's a glory 90s movie, and Lovecraft's the protagonist, and it's got these, and also the overarching story between them, of the library and the cultists and Lovecraft is pretty good too. So I guess you kind of get 4 stories in one. Anyway, Necronomicon, I liked it a lot. It'll never be rated the best Lovecraft movie of all time, but it's well worth a peek, I think. Plus, I love anthology movies. 2000s, you may have noticed I don't have a lot of movies here from Hollywood, and that's because, by and large, I think that they are not good horror. They telegraph who's going to be killed or not killed. Like, for example, in a Hollywood movie, if there's a little kid, you know the kid's safe in the Hollywood movie. If you're watching an Italian horror movie or a Chinese one, the kid is in danger. The kid might live or not, but if something's menacing the kid, if it's from Hollywood, you know the menace won't come through. If it's in Italy, you're like, this menace might get the kid, and you're scared for the kid. So, you know, that's a good thing. So here we are in the 2000s, and Hollywood horror is still no good. And so this movie is from Thailand, and it's called Coming Soon, and it's based on like movie piracy and upcoming movies, and the movie in the story hasn't come out yet, but it's being shown in theaters for like they testing the reels and stuff, and a guy pirates it, and it turns out that the movie is haunted, and there's the ghost of a hanged woman that appears, and you have her corpse dangling in the empty theater, and there's a lot of scenes with people going through empty movie theaters while the movie is being run, and terrifying moments from that. One sample scene is the woman's running through the theater calling to her friend, and the movie's running in the background. She's like, "Where are you?" And she yells to him, and he doesn't answer. So she calls his phone, and she hears the phone, but he still doesn't answer. And then she realizes gradually that the phone that she rang, is coming from the speakers, and his phone's in the screen in the movie. So, and it kind of moves on from there. So, Coming Soon, excellent Thai horror movie that I recommend. Finally, from the 2000 teens, with a movie from Turkey called Baskin. No idea what Baskin means. Among us movie buffs, Turkey generally has a reputation for doing really terrible movies. Very entertaining, but really terrible. But Baskin, done in the last few years, is not terrible. It's like really well filmed. It's about some cops, and the cops are charismatic and vulgar and funny and mean and nice. They're great. They're interesting cops, and they're going off, and the issue is that there is what apparently is a satanic cult. And it turns out, interestingly, that the Islamic view of Satanists is the same as the Christian view. They're very similar cults. And they go off, and the cult's super bad, and the head cultist is a guy who'd never acted before, and he has a physical defect, which I won't go into, but some kind of genetic problem, and it makes him look really creepy, and apparently he has no makeup. He's just this guy. But one of the things I really like about the evil cult leader is that quite often cult leaders are just shown as being crazy, mad guys. This cult leader, when he talks, he seems wise. He's still evil and creepy. Like, one of the things he says is, "You think hell is a place. You carry hell inside you." You know, which like seems like wisdom, but it's like not fun wisdom to hear. So great Satanist cult, very gory, well filmed, not super high budget, but it didn't need it for what it was trying to do. So I'd say Baskin. So there are my movie recommendations for you for each decade. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from the 1920s with John Barrymore. White Zombie, Body Snatchers, You Asan's Visage, Black Sabbath, Tenebrae, City of the Living Dead, Necronomicon, Coming Soon, and Baskin. 10 great movies that show the horror movie as it's been through all these ages. And they're all good. They're all moderately obscure. And I think you'll enjoy them. I sure did.